My fiancé cheated on me with my brother at our engagement party, and my family took his side, but 2 years later, they called me with shocking news. 4 days ago, my family contacted me after 2 years of no communication. This happened because my fiancé cheated on me with my brother on the day of our engagement, which caused a disaster and forced me to cut ties with them. For context, my fiancé, my brother, and I all went to school together and had known each other for a long time. Kim, my fiancé, was in the same grade as me, while Ron, my brother, was just 2 years younger. Ron and I used to be very close when we were younger, so we were part of the same friend group, which meant he was also friends with Kim. I asked Kim to be my date to prom in my senior year of high school, and after that, we started dating. We even ended up at the same university, so we had been together for almost 7 years when I proposed to her. She said yes, and we got engaged. I organized a party that very day, inviting only our families and a few close friends in the afternoon to celebrate the big news before announcing it on social media. I was so busy celebrating that I didn't notice anything strange happening around me, so I didn't see Ron looking very upset and trying to put on a happy face. I also didn't notice that he went to smoke in the backyard, or realize that when Kim excused herself to go to the bathroom, she was gone for nearly 15 minutes. But suddenly, when I noticed Kim had been gone for over 10 minutes, I decided to check on her and went to the bathroom. To my surprise, she wasn't there, and my instincts told me to check the backyard. I saved myself from a terrible marriage because, when I peeked into the backyard, I saw my brother kissing my fiancée. I had already had a terrible feeling when they came out of the room one after the other, and seeing that scene left me devastated. I froze for a few seconds before finally reacting and shouting at them, which made them separate. They tried to act innocent, which was obviously pointless. I had seen what they were doing and knew the truth. I started walking back into the house, feeling so many things at once that I don't even remember exactly what they were trying to say to me. All I recall is that they were trying to talk to me, but I was completely disconnected and not even listening to them. I went into the living room with them behind me, and without even waiting for them to say anything, I announced what I had seen. I told our families that the engagement was, unfortunately, canceled because Kim was a dirty cheater, and Ron had no sense of loyalty. Kim started crying, and Ron tried to comfort her, which bothered me so much that I told them both to leave my house. At the time, Kim and I were living together, but my name was on the lease. We used to split the rent, so she tried to argue with me, saying she wasn't going anywhere because she hadn't done anything wrong. Naturally, that surprised me because I think kissing your fiancé's brother is pretty much the definition of doing something wrong. But she continued explaining that she had only agreed to go out with me back in high school because she needed a date for prom. Even when we were in university, she thought she loved me, but she actually didn't. In recent years, after we graduated, she realized she had feelings for Ron, not me. Apparently, living with me made her realize that our relationship was never going to work because we were too different. She thought I was a workaholic who didn't know how to have fun and was too controlling and possessive. Honestly, I had no idea what she was talking about because I work normal hours and really don't prioritize work over my personal life. As for having fun, I don't even know what she's referring to because, in my opinion, I'm pretty fun. I don't even want to get into what she said about me being controlling and possessive because I don't think I ever behaved that way with her, but I think she just wanted a reason to break up with me. So she made up a bunch of things in her head and started validating them for herself. Anyway, she went on to tell me that she had been talking to Ron about her issues with me for a couple of years and gradually started falling for him. In fact, they hadn't even been together. But getting engaged made her realize she couldn't go on like this. And when she saw that even Ron seemed pretty upset and really needed to step out of the room, she took it as a sign and followed him to the backyard. They talked about their feelings for each other, and only after that confession did they kiss for the first time. They said the only reason they had held back for so long was because Kim and I had been together for so long that neither of them wanted to hurt me. That was the only reason Kim had agreed to marry me, because she didn't think he would make a move on her since he loved his brother. Ron had been thinking similarly, believing he might never have a chance with Kim because she loved me so much, even though she constantly complained about me to him. But after talking in the backyard, they realized the engagement with me was never going to work because she was in love with him and he was in love with her. Now Kim wanted to break off the engagement with me and try to have a real relationship with my brother. Both families and a few friends we had invited were shocked, and I felt humiliated that this was happening, but there was no other choice. Her parents, fortunately, seemed like reasonable people and apologized to me for what their daughter had done. They told her she was free to do whatever she wanted, but for now, they really didn't want to talk to her. My parents, on the other hand, turned out to be the worst parents in the world because they actually started supporting the two of them. They tried to explain to me that it was completely natural for Kim to stop loving me, and that I shouldn't take it so hard since these things happen, and the only thing I could do was try to move on. In fact, They even expected me to support the relationship between Kim and Ron. When I tried to make them see how ridiculous they sounded, they just got exasperated and told me that I had always been a difficult person to deal with, so it wasn't very surprising that Kim had decided to leave me for Ron, who was much more laid back than I was. They told me I was too uptight and that they had known the relationship with Kim wouldn't last because she was the complete opposite of me and had always been more like my brother. Both of them seemed to agree on this, so I started to think that maybe my entire family had lost their minds. Anyway, I was so upset that I didn't want to keep spending time with them, trying to argue or explain how I felt. All they wanted to do was celebrate the fact that Kim and Ron were finally together, because, I guess my parents already knew that he had feelings for her. They went to great lengths to make me feel like, somehow, I was responsible for my relationship falling apart, and acted as though everything that had been said about me was true, which I suppose justified what she had done. At least my friends seemed to be on my side, and they helped me pack up some of my things. One of them let me stay at their place for the next few weeks, since I didn't want to go back to mine. Now, I guess you could say that after the engagement day I didn't have to see them again, but that wouldn't be true. I had to go back several times to collect my things, as I had been living in that house for a long time, practically since I graduated, and one afternoon wasn't enough to get everything out. She refunded the money I had paid for that month's rent, and every time I went to pick up my things in the following weeks, Ron was always there with her, which bothered me immensely. Anyway, after I finished getting my things, she returned the money and the ring, and I decided to cut ties with all of them. I stayed in intermittent contact with my parents for a few weeks, and I couldn't believe they genuinely supported what Ron had done. They told me that if Kim wasn't happy with me, it was entirely up to her to decide what she wanted to do and who she wanted to be with. And if it was Ron she wanted to be with, it wasn't exactly wrong for him to accept that. If they loved each other, it didn't matter if she had cheated on me, or if he had betrayed me. They were meant to be together, and they were going to support that relationship no matter how I felt. No matter how much I denied it, they kept bringing up what Kim had said about me being controlling, possessive, never having time for her, and not knowing how to have fun. At one point, I genuinely started to question those things. So I talked to a couple of my friends, people who had always been honest with me since we were friends in school. They had known Kim and me for a long time, so I could trust that they'd be truthful. They told me that everything she had said was nonsense, and that she was just making up those things to justify her affair. I worked a reasonable amount, and they confirmed it. I cared about my job just like anyone else, no more, no less. I was a pretty fun person, maybe not always the life of the party like my brother, but that didn't matter because I knew how to relax, and that was enough. Besides, things like that shouldn't even matter in a relationship. It wasn't as if her life became boring or difficult because of me. As for being controlling and possessive, my friends completely denied it. That only made me believe even more strongly that my family and Kim had just been trying to manipulate me into thinking I was all those things, and that I deserved to be left the way I was. But I eventually stopped saying anything to them, and managed to cut my family out of my life as well. I heard from some friends that Ron and Kim got married in a small private ceremony about a year after we broke up, and honestly, I didn't feel anything about it. Another year has passed since then, and for almost 2 years, I've had no contact with my family. I've accomplished a lot in life, traveled extensively, and I don't even feel like I've missed out on anything. However, last week, my mom called me. At first, I rejected the call and even blocked the number she was using, but that didn't stop her. She started using another number, and when I realized it was her, I still didn't answer. She kept insisting, and after nearly 4 hours, I decided to pick up the call because she hadn't stopped calling every minute. I was quite irritated, but when I answered, I heard her crying on the other end of the line, and I was very confused because I had no idea why she was sobbing. So instead of yelling at her, like I had planned, I decided to ask her what was going on. She told me that apparently my brother and Kim had been in an accident, and both had fallen into a coma. The accident was terrible. A truck had crashed into them, and they were in horrible condition. I'm not joking when I say I felt a lot of sympathy for them, and told my mom to stay strong because, despite what they had done to me, this was truly awful, and I definitely didn't expect something like this. My mom couldn't stop crying on the phone, so she handed it over to my dad, who was a bit calmer. He told me they were calling to ask me to visit them so they could have some kind of support during this time. I didn't even understand what they meant by some kind of support, because I'm sure both Ron and Kim had health insurance, so they didn't need my money. As for emotional support, they had each other, and I wasn't sure what I could do for them. To be honest, they hadn't been in contact with me for the past 2 years, so I didn't understand why they suddenly wanted me to be there for them. But a few minutes later, my dad clarified what he meant, and I'm still reeling from it. Apparently, they wanted me to help by taking care of Kim and Ron's 2-month-old baby. The whole pregnancy was news to me because no one had told me about it, partly because I had left all of that behind, and partly because Kim and Ron had been in Oklahoma during the pregnancy. Ron had been working on a project there when they found out, and they decided to stay throughout the pregnancy and afterward. They had friends and some family there, so everything was fine. Their family even flew in to be present for the baby's birth. So the people who had told me about their wedding didn't know anything either, because they had lost contact over time, and they weren't the type to use social media. But now they were in the hospital after this terrible accident. Honestly, I felt numb after hearing about this and didn't know how to react, but my dad told me that for now, they had hired a nanny to care for the baby, but they also needed to think about something long-term. Apparently, they had spoken with the medical team, and Ron and Kim had been given low chances of survival, so my dad called me to say that if anything happened to them, they wanted me to help raise the baby. He thought this was the most valid way to handle the situation, so he wanted me to visit the baby and at least try to form a bond with him. I thought this was the most ridiculous idea, and I immediately told him I wasn't going to do any of that. Literally, everything about his suggestion was incredibly problematic, and I didn't want to be a part of it. But instead of accepting that, he started yelling at me, saying I was being selfish with the family and that this wasn't the time to make everything about me, but about Kim and Ron, because they are literally in a coma. He said the family needs me now, and most importantly, my nephew needs me, so I need to be there for everyone instead of living in the past. But it's not that I said no out of resentment. I refused because it's just weird. I don't want to have to build a relationship with my nephew under these circumstances. I didn't even know I had a nephew until a couple of days ago, and suddenly, I'm expected to take on the responsibility of caring for him as if he were mine, and to consider caring for him in the future in case something happens to his parents. His parents are a whole other topic entirely, and I don't even want to get into that right now. But the point is that I don't want to see anyone in the family at the moment because my emotions are all over the place. And I really don't think I want to be in a situation where I have to try to build a relationship with a child whose chances of being orphaned are very high. The child isn't to blame, but it would just feel too weird. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm simply not willing to see anyone right now. My parents have been saying this is unfair and insisting that I need to go to the hospital to see my nephew and be there for everyone. This has made me feel like a complete jerk, and I really don't know what to do right now. Update 1. Thank you all so much for the comments and advice. I really don't have an answer as to why they got married and had a child so quickly, but it's true that I always thought their excuse that they only kissed at the engagement party was ridiculous. But I never had a way to prove it, nor did I care to. I mean, they had just left me. It didn't matter if they had been cheating on me before. It wouldn't have changed much about my situation. At most, it would have hurt me more. But back to the present, I think the best thing for me now is to stay away. I know this isn't about me, that they had an accident and are in the hospital right now. I don't wish death on them or anything. It's been a long time since I held a grudge, but it's not like everything disappears and we suddenly become a happy family again. Considering that their mother was once the love of my life, I just don't think it's a good idea to try to build a relationship with him. Honestly, I don't even know if his parents would have wanted that. Most of the comments here validated my decision not to meet them or see them right now because it's not something I have to do. They have people taking care of them. I don't. So I need to take care of myself right now. I don't see them as family, so I don't understand why I should act like a member of it. Accidents happen every day, but you don't see strangers stepping in to take over. Well, yes, when they adopt, but that's not something I was planning to do. I haven't been responding to my parents' calls or messages because I don't even know what to say to them. I've tried to explain my point of view, but they just don't understand. I don't think they're even capable of understanding what I'm going through or what I've been through, so it's pretty pointless to talk to them. I've decided to keep ignoring them until I can't anymore. I have my own life and job to focus on, so I hope that will distract me enough from what's happening. Update 2. My parents decided to visit me today. I've been ignoring them for the past 2 weeks, and I guess they couldn't take it anymore. It's the weekend, so I couldn't even escape to work, and I had to talk to them. At least something productive came out of the discussion, so I'm glad it happened, though I'm not really happy with how things went. They showed up in the morning, and I had to let them in. They didn't even bother with small talk before getting straight to the point of their visit. They said they had noticed I'd been ignoring them, but now that they were there, I couldn't do that anymore. They demanded answers for my behavior and said I was being really selfish, that I couldn't keep acting like I always had, like a difficult person to deal with. They admitted that what happened to me 2 years ago with Kim and Ron wasn't right, but they loved each other, and I couldn't have stopped that from happening. They told me I should have been grateful to have discovered their feelings on the day of the engagement, and not after we had already gotten married, so they didn't see any reason to feel bad about supporting my brother and Kim. They also said that even if I felt betrayed, I still shouldn't behave this way, because it's bad enough that my brother and Kim had an accident. The last thing the family needs is for me to be so selfish and cold that I can't even forgive them after they've been through something so terrible. I was surprised that they made it seem like I should just forgive them because they had an accident and that it was their karma, so I shouldn't worry about it anymore. I'm not sure that's how things work, but I didn't say anything and let them talk without interruptions. I was saving everything I had to say for the end because, honestly, I didn't think interrupting them and turning the situation into a heated argument would help. They told me I should take this as a sign to at least try to make amends with them because right now, no one can predict what might happen. The doctors have asked us to remain hopeful, and they think I could start by trying to build a relationship with my nephew, just in case I have to take care of him. That's what really upset me. At that moment, I finally interrupted them and said that even in a hypothetical situation where I agreed to take care of him, it would still be really strange if I decided to visit the baby and try to build a relationship with my nephew. And then, suddenly, Kim and Ron started getting better and decided they didn't want me near the baby. Then where would that leave me? I'd already have grown attached to the baby, only to have that taken away from me. On top of that, it was strange for my parents to act this way. Instead of spending their time with their children at the hospital, they were here wasting time arguing with me, and I couldn't even see the point of what they were doing. So I told them it would be better for them to go back to the hospital and actually do something productive with their time. They seemed offended by the insinuation that they were wasting their time and said they only approached me because they thought I was the only person who could take care of my nephew, just as my brother would have. They told me that when Kim and Ron recovered and found out that I'd gone out of my way to see them and build a relationship with my nephew, they would have been happy. They said that, but they didn't seem very confident when they said it, and they shouldn't have been, because we haven't spoken in the past 2 years, and our relationship ended very badly. They never showed any regret for their actions, and I seriously doubt they'd be happy if I tried to build a relationship with their baby. Anyway, I told my parents that my final decision was that I wasn't going to see them, at least not now. I still need some time to process what I'm feeling. I know no one cares about my feelings, but I do. I've stayed out of their lives and never bothered them, so now it's time for them to respect my feelings and do the same for me. I thought they were going to start arguing again after that, but luckily they seemed to understand what I was trying to say and simply gave up. They still told me they'd be waiting for me to show up, but I told them not to get their hopes up. I said I hoped and prayed that Kim and Ron would fully recover soon because I really do wish for that. I didn't want to seem insensitive, so I felt it was necessary to say it. I even gave them a box of chocolates I'd bought a couple of days ago. I'd thought about giving it to a friend who had helped me with something, but at that moment, I figured it would be better to give it to them for Kim and Ron. I told them this was the best I could do for them, but that's all I was willing to do. Anyway, they're gone now, and I feel much more relieved, so I guess I needed this to happen at some point. Update 3. I'm not sure if I wanted to find out these things, but I did. So I think it's only fair to share them with you, even though it hurts me. Many of you have been asking, so I owe it to you. My ex-fiancée, or ex-girlfriend, since we were engaged for too short a time to really call her that, and my brother had been cheating on me long before that. It's not surprising, as it was pretty obvious, but it still hurts to know. And I know this now because my mother sent me a rather long email telling me all these things. Here it is, so you can read it and draw your own conclusions. Subject, from Mom. I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened between us, and I feel it's necessary to tell you some things that have been on my mind. I won't beat around the bush because I think it's time to be completely honest. To start, I want to say I'm very disappointed in how you've handled things lately. The way you've distanced yourself from the family and ignored us, especially at such a difficult time, hurts me deeply. I won't lie, I never imagined one of my own children could be so selfish. Instead of being here with us, supporting us through what's happening with Ron and Kim, you've chosen to distance yourself and stay in your own world, as if we didn't matter. You know, I've come to be grateful that Ron and Kim discovered their feelings for each other before you and Kim got engaged. Yes, I said it. They are good children to us, children who truly care about their family and have always been there when we needed them. I don't know what happened to you, but I feel like we've lost the son we once knew. You've let your grudges and feelings push you away from the people who loved you the most. Ron and Kim, despite everything, have shown they are strong and united. Yes, their relationship didn't start in the best way, but you know what? I'm grateful things turned out this way because they deserve to be happy together, and we as a family are here to support them. You could have been part of that. You could have been a present brother and son, but you chose not to be. If you ever decide to set aside your pride and realize what truly matters in life, we'll be here. But I want you to know that every day you choose not to be with us is a day you move further and further away from your family. And that, my son, is a choice only you can make. I love you, Mom. I won't comment much on the absurdity of blaming me for all of this, because I'm convinced no sane person thinks that. At least, I hope not. But the fact that she knew they had been cheating on me before, and that they didn't just discover their feelings that night as they claimed, is something else. I'm not sure if my mom knew about it from the beginning or found out afterward, which wouldn't be surprising considering the whole situation now. But it hardly matters anymore since my family is a complete mess, and I'm very glad I cut ties with them. Update 4. It's hard to write this update, but I feel it's necessary to share what's happened. Unfortunately, Ron didn't survive. After everything, the weeks in a coma and the complications that arose, his body just couldn't take it anymore. He passed away a month ago, and it's been a very tough blow for all of us. Although I had a lot of mixed feelings toward him, I can't deny that his loss hurts me. He was my brother, and despite everything that happened between us, he will always be a part of my life, even with all the bad things he did to me. And if you're wondering, no, I didn't attend his funeral. Kim, on the other hand, managed to pull through, but not without consequences. The accident and the coma have left her with some lasting effects. She has mobility issues in her right leg and has lost part of her short-term memory. She's in rehabilitation, and although her progress has been slow, the doctors are optimistic about her recovery. Even so, it won't be easy for her to adapt to her new reality. What gives me the most relief in all of this is knowing that the baby won't have to grow up completely orphaned. While he's lost his father, he still has his mother. That's all I've been able to find out about my family in these past months, because after my mom's last email, they haven't reached out to me. Everything I know is through third parties. I suppose this will be the closure to my story.